What's up, guys? My name is Rob. Welcome back to Rule of Two Review. Today is Question Corner, episode number 4. Of course, if you would like one of your questions answered on an episode, as well as a shout out to you personally, please leave your questions for the next episode of Question Corner below. I love being able to interact with you guys, find out what it is you want me to talk about specifically, and kind of just, like I said, give you that shout out and explore different ideas that matter to you personally. So what we're doing for question number 4 today is kind of similar to the very first episode, where I have two people's questions to answer, but they're both kind of the same question. So I'm going to kind of read both questions and then get into the thick of it. Of course, what we're talking about, again, today is Nintendo. All 3 episodes of the Question Corner so far have been Nintendo related, which is great because I love Nintendo more than anything, of course. However, I'm hoping to be able to get some more non-Nintendo questions in the future. But that aside, I always appreciate the questions no matter what they're about. So let's get to it. Again, same question from 2 different people. The first version of this question came from YouTube user Michael Kelly, who I've talked about before. One of the oldest people who started following Rule of Two Review way back when it first started. So, what's up, buddy? I always appreciate hearing from you, and thanks for asking a great question. He asks me my thoughts and possible ideas on the plans for Nintendo's next console. What new ideas will they have for the new controller and the console in general? So, of course, we know not too long ago, Miyamoto came out and confirmed that there are ideas being kicked around and early work being handled on whatever the next generation console from Nintendo is going to be. No other details, no other dates or anything have been revealed yet. So, pretty interesting kind of news, and I knew that at some point someone would probably want me to talk about this. So, of course, here we are with Question Corner number 4, and somebody's doing that. Also, the Magnum924 asks me basically the same question. He or she says, what ideas do you have for Nintendo's next console? Miyamoto said something about the next F-Zero being made if the controller fit. So what could they do next that would suit it? So that's kind of a question about both the next console as well as F-Zero and the whole controller idea, since we know that that's been a big focus for Nintendo these last 2 generations. So there's a couple different ideas to approach here. I kind of made a list of sorts of just a couple notes and sort of things that popped into my head when thinking about this. Now, I did make an initial video right after Miyamoto made those comments, which was now, I think, a month or a month and a half ago. Several weeks, 5-6 weeks ago. And, I didn't really talk about my theories at the time, but I did talk about why he would have said that and what it means for Nintendo to already be thinking about the next console, if the Wii U is already supposed to be considered on its way out, or if Nintendo's going to abandon it and all of these things. Of course, they've basically confirmed that that is not the case. They're not going to be abandoning the Wii. I think there's no way we're going to see this next console before 2017, which means we get a good 5 years. We still have 2.5 more years to go, kind of, until that system goes. So that system comes out, and until the Wii U would go away. So there's plenty of time to love and support the Wii U, and we know there's plenty of games this year and next year, so it's going to be an exciting time. Now, when I think of my thoughts for the next console, what Nintendo might do, what's going to be important going forward, the most important thing, the number one thing I think that we and Nintendo have learned over these last now 10 years, almost 10 years, is that what they cannot do with the next system is name it the Wii. I think that the Wii brand, the Wii moniker, is going to be going away. Not only should it go away, but I think it's also going to. I think Nintendo knows that, and they've realized, yes, the Wii itself, and I loved the Wii, and I love the Wii U, but I'm talking about when you look at the entire picture of gaming and the way the gaming space looks at all the different manufacturers and what they look at with Nintendo and the Wii U, I should say. And it's weird, it's kind of like the Dreamcast effect, where most people seem to acknowledge and understand that the Wii U is a great system with an amazing library. I mean, it, excuse me, easily has the best library of any of the 3 consoles out there. So there's definitely an understanding that what Nintendo is doing is quality, but there's so many other things that are hurting it, and I think one of those things is the name of the Wii. I think that the Wii was a great lightning in a bottle kind of situation, and it was a great system. Not a great system, it was a very good system with a lot of great games, for sure. And I still have a ton of Wii games, and I love them, and I will still play them. But that was like a one-off thing, and that created a whole new market for Nintendo. Nintendo tried to capitalize on that market going into the Wii U and find a stronger balance between the casual and the hardcores, and they've really just only found the hardcores, but not even enough to grab the other ones who left Nintendo back, and the casuals could give 2 shits about gaming anymore, which is fine. We don't want them. We don't want the games that have been made for them, honestly, so get out of here. We don't care about you. So I think that Nintendo has learned that the Wii brand is no longer able to be capitalized on. It's time for that to go. Nintendo needs to strengthen themselves as a different kind, almost like mold or position themselves as a different kind of console and game maker going forward for future generations. What they've done going back to the 80s and 90s was perfect. What they did with the Wii was perfect for that new market. What they're doing with the Wii U is kind of like trying to find out where they fit again, and again, trying to balance the Wii market with the old hardcore market, and it's not working in people's eyes and as far as the sales are concerned. Obviously, I think it's a great system with a great library. It's the library I prefer, and a lot of people feel that way, but not enough people feel that way. So they need to separate themselves from the Wii thing. That was a fun little time. That was a great experiment for 2 generations in 10 years. Okay, that time's done. Now let's do the next new thing for Nintendo. So whatever the next frickin' crazy system box ends up being, I think that it's a great way for them to reposition themselves with a brand new name and a stronger marketing campaign. That thing can feel like a whole new Nintendo by the time that comes out. So I'm hoping that that's what they do, and I think it's all but guaranteed they will not name it anything Wii related. It's going to be a brand new thing for Nintendo, which will be really exciting if that's what happens. The other thing you think about when you think about Nintendo's hardware is the power. Okay, obviously that's been a conversation since the Wii. With the 6th generation and the GameCube, it was an extremely powerful system that was right in line with its peers. It was much more powerful than the PlayStation 2, and not quite as powerful as the Xbox, but it was right in line with those 2 consoles and what they were capable of doing. The Wii, we know, was very much a generation behind still of its direct competition. The Wii U, much closer to its current competition with the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, but still the least powerful of the 3 consoles by design. And so a lot of people see that as maybe a problem, and I can understand why. I mean, I like the Wii U just the way it is, but I acknowledge that if it did have more power, it would probably help them because third parties might be more apt to port their games over and not have to look at the architecture as so dissimilar from its competition. So it's one of the, the laundry list of reasons why, third parties might not really want to work with Nintendo, or a lot of other people see Nintendo so differently as the other competition. They have this misconception of what the power of the Wii U really is, and that is really boldened by the fact that at the end of the day, it is still less powerful than the other systems. So when you think about what they would do with the next console, what I think is going to happen, and I've talked about this before, and this is kind of, branching into a different topic, and I won't rest too long on it, but I think that Nintendo is slowly moving themselves into a position where they are going to be on their own console and own game release structure. They are not worried about where they fit generation-wise with the direct competition, Sony and Microsoft. And I feel like if Sony and Microsoft are looking to release their next systems or apps or whatever the hell ends up happening with those guys, their next generation machines in like 2019 or 20, for example, I think Nintendo is less concerned with that. And they're more like, we're going to create a system that's going to have the life that makes sense for that system and the games we want to make. And then once it's time for that to go, then we'll make the next one. As opposed to worrying about when is Sony going to release the PlayStation 5. We need to make sure we position ourselves strategically around the PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox, just like they're going to do for us and the other guy. And so how is everyone going to fit within this mold? And I think that Sony and Microsoft are going to have to continue to do this. And Nintendo is kind of like, well, we're just doing this. And they're doing that more and more. So when it comes to this idea of how the power will play into the next system, what I think will happen is if Nintendo does release their next system, like in 2017, for example, I think it is going to be an incredibly powerful machine. I think they've learned it's time to start taking advantage of the most current hardware and, prowess of technology available at that current time and make that available in their console. They no longer can probably play the whole, we're going to save a little bit of money by keeping it just developmentally behind just enough to make a profit, and, hopefully good games will still come out and people won't care. Like, that's worked for a time, but that time I think is over or ending, and I think it's something else that Nintendo knows. They're slowly wisening up to a lot of the issues that they've had this generation, and I think that this is something that they're going to be addressing, and they're going to be willing to spend a little bit more to make a more powerful system that is appropriate for the time that it releases. I don't think it's going to have much to do with how the power of, again, the PlayStation 5 and next Xbox will be, because if those come out a few years later, they'll probably still be, by comparison, more powerful than Nintendo's next machine. But if Nintendo's next machine does come out within its own time frame and is extremely powerful and competent for whatever time frame that is, I think that's going to be okay, and I think that's what they're going to do. So I don't think that they're going to skimp on power anymore, but I also don't think it's going to be meant to match up directly with what Sony and Microsoft does do, because it's going to be meant for only Nintendo's game plan and only that period within that they release it. You know, if that makes sense. So anyway, I kind of lost my sentence there at the end, but you know what I mean. And let me think here. So another thing with their next system, gimmicks. If you want to look at the Wiimote and Nunchuck or the gamepad as a gimmick, which I don't really see them as gimmicks, but they are unique little weird quirky ideas that Nintendo does, I feel like they're going to continue the use of the Wii Remote and Nunchuck and the gamepad, actually, or even a new version of the gamepad. I feel like those peripherals, those controllers, just like with the Wii U, will work with the next system. So whatever the next Nintendo box is, I think it's going to have its own controller, and I think it's also going to be compatible with the gamepad, and it's going to be compatible still with the Wii Remote, because they will probably still allow you to play Wii games, I'm hoping. I'm really, really hoping. And even if not, I feel like they'll still find a way to incorporate the Wii Remote, because the Wii Remote and Nunchuck, for what it was, is and was great. And I think that there's still use with that going forward, and I think that Nintendo knows that. I could almost see them making brand new Wii Remote and Nunchucks with a couple new features and functions that's a little bit more modern and hip, that will work easier with that really expansive new hardware at the time that it comes out. But I still think that they know that they don't have to let that idea go. I think it's still relevant moving forward, even into the next generation. Obviously, touchscreen gaming is still going to be relevant, so the gamepad makes a lot of sense. So I do feel like we'll see those old gimmicks and controllers compatible with the new system. However, I don't necessarily think they're going to have a brand new one. Now, I could be really wrong on this. This is one that I'm really just sort of 50-50 on, because my other idea, I'm going to have to get to my other idea on the controller in a minute as well, but I don't necessarily know that they're going to try anything super crazy. They might just make the actual standard controller for their next system a regular controller, or their version of a regular controller, the way the GameCube controller was, or the Super Nintendo controller was, or the 64, you know. A regular controller with a couple smaller innovations, but nothing that's meant to be a major innovation like the Wii Remote and Nunchuck, or like they tried to do with the gamepad. And I love the gamepad, but it wasn't as much of an innovation, I think, as they thought it was. Still great for the system, and still my preferred controller of all this generation. So I don't really know that they're going to do something so kooky and out of the box with the standard controller for the next generation. However, let's explore the idea if they do. Because part of the question that, well, really, I guess both Magnum and Michael did kind of ask me this question about how the next controller will fit into the next system. And if they didn't do something that was a standard controller, let's say they tried to do another new innovation with another unique controller specific to that machine, the only thing, I mean, there's all sorts of different ideas. Does it have multiple touchpads? Does it flip open? Is it going to be another thing where you use both your hands separately like the Wii Remote and Nunchuck? Is it going to be, they've talked about the whole thing where they have like some sort of thing they're working on that's a touchscreen. Oops, it's the second time I've done that in a video, sorry guys. Where it's like a touchscreen with a hole in the middle for doing something. I mean, maybe that stuff comes. I think the most important thing that they're going to try to do is evolve what the gamepad did try to do, where the gamepad is sort of multifaceted in its function. Like, you can do a lot of things. You can use it as a regular controller. You can use it as a touchscreen controller. You can navigate menus and maps and stuff with it. You can use it as a steering wheel. You can use it as a gyro sensor to aim. And you can use it as a kind of a 3D space detector, almost like virtual reality, where you can move around a room if you play something like ZombiU, for example, and you can be, your character's facing one way on screen, but you can turn all the way around with the gamepad and see all these other things behind you in the 3D virtual space that the gamepad creates, which is so awesome, and I really hope that more games start doing that, by the way. God, I was really excited for even like a Call of Duty or something to do that, where that was how you were going to snipe. And ZombiU actually does do that too, where you pull up the snipe this way, and I think there's another game I'm brain farting that does. That shit is so cool, man. Game developers, Nintendo, do that more often. That is an amazing tool you have with the gamepad. Another thing I've wanted people to do with the gamepad, I'm tangenting again, but I would love it if Bethesda, who I love to death, would get their head out of their ass, and if Fallout 4 comes out on the Wii U, the gamepad is your Pip-Boy. Do that. Please make the gamepad your motherfucking Pip-Boy. That's like what it is for. Show us that you can be that creative and do something with it. There is so much to do with the gamepad. It's ridiculous. Anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand. So you can do all those things with the gamepad, and I feel like however the new controller for the new system would end up working, I feel like there is a great opportunity for them to evolve the idea of it doing more than one thing. Now, I don't know if this is going to be something similar to the gamepad where it's just one unit that is the unit it is and can just do all these different things, or maybe it's going to be something where, and this might be too crazy, but you never know, where there's like pieces to it, and you like would assemble the controller you need it to be at the time you need it to be for the game you're going to play. I do think that that would be too cumbersome, and a lot of people would never want to do that. There is great potential there, but I think it would just be too much. I mean, gamers are proving more and more how lazy we are, and we don't really want to do a whole lot when it comes to gaming, sadly, you know. I do like moving with the right kinds of games, but even I'm that way, and I'm actually a very healthy, active person as is, so I'm not a lazy human being. I just got back from the gym, actually, before recording this, so I'm not afraid to move. But I do understand the idea of, while gaming, I don't want to have to do a whole lot. And there's a lot to that. I won't argue that point. And I think most people are making a good case when they say, I don't want to have to do anything other than sit down, turn my shit on, hold a regular controller, and just go. And that's totally fair. And I feel that way a lot as well. So I don't know if they would actually do something like that, but it's kind of just a way to get your brain thinking and my brain thinking about where Nintendo may be going, because we certainly know there's no putting anything past them. Now, might they step into like straight up virtual reality and have something where there's a helmet involved that you could use, especially with like the advent of Oculus Rift and how popular that is, and if Morpheus takes off? I mean, who knows? Maybe. I don't really see that. And Miyamoto said after last year's E3 that he thinks virtual reality is cool, but it's probably nowhere near like actual consumer usage, and that may be true, and I certainly trust Miyamoto, so we'll see. I mean, I could see them changing their mind and trying something like that again, but probably not. So those are some of the ideas with the controller, both if it would be a standard controller or if they would try something new. I think that the number one thing they would focus on with a new controller is making it versatile and usable for a lot of different functions and a lot of different gameplay types, and that could be cool. So the last thing that I think would be a pretty big focus for Nintendo's next machine is going to be a larger emphasis on online features and digital content. With the Wii U, they've really stepped very strongly into the digital market. And although I don't really care for the digital market at all, I recognize that it was a smart move, and it's been very good for them because it is a huge part of today's gaming and is only going to become huger. It is only going to continue to grow, and people are going to be more and more attached to it. I flippin' hate downloading games. I will buy anything. I will pay extra, provided it's not like abnormally priced. I will pay extra for a retail copy. I said it when I started my Resident Evil Let's Play on the PS4 for the HD remake. Like, the game was only $20 to download, which is a fair price. However, I would have preferred to spend extra money to go pick up a retail copy. I would love a boxed version of that game or any game that I want to own. I don't want to download games, and I appreciate that on the indie and retro market it's downloadable, so that's different. I download Nintendo and Super Nintendo games, and I want to start downloading Genesis and 64 games, and that's okay because they're retro and those were cartridge days. So, like, okay, that has a place. But when it comes to actual games, like, I will always prefer retail. Anyway, I'm beating a dead horse. The point is, the digital market, the Nintendo eShop, Xbox Live, PSN, Steam, which I do love and use Steam, like, these things are very important to today's gaming culture. Like, love it or hate it, for myself, which I hate it, I acknowledge it. And I do see the couple benefits to it. Like, even though I don't really like it, there are a lot of benefits to it, and I do see them. So I have to acknowledge that Nintendo has started to find a good niche for themselves. And I also acknowledge that when it comes to the game developers themselves and the console manufacturers, there is no doubt they save crazy money on successful digital content. So in that respect, and for any company that I want to be successful, I acknowledge the fact that digital content is going to make them a lot more money and have them spending less on the overhead to make and release these games because they're not producing digital copies. Or, sorry, physical copies. And that's a good thing. Honestly, when it comes to the digital market, I will never have a problem with it. I will support it for all those reasons and the other benefits to it, provided that the physical stuff never goes away. Provided there's an option. I will spend the extra time, the extra effort, the extra energy to drive to a store, and the extra money to buy my retail stuff till the end of time. And I am happy to do so. I am happy to pay you guys extra to pick up a physical copy. And the guys who want digital stuff, that's fine. Just leave it that way. So provided the option always exists, I'm cool with it, man. That's fine. However, again, I'm tangenting. When it comes to Nintendo specifically, because they found such a market, I think they've actually found a way to make a lot more money with the digital content. And it's only going to become more and more relevant and important when you think of 2 or 3, 5 years down the road. The next console has to be very dedicated to that. I think that the online features and the other things like cross-game chat that everyone is talking about, especially now with the recent Splatoon news, and the ideas I talked about on my last Question Corner about more connection to social media outlets and Facebook and Twitter, and maybe an evolved version of Miiverse and something that actually has the Miiverse connect with something like Facebook. All these things are going to become more important, built from the ground up, the infrastructure of the UI of the next system from the launch day of that console. That will be a huge part of it. I think they will focus on the online stuff, the social media stuff, and digital content, digital downloads and games. And that could be, the digital stuff is going to be for the better or the worse. Like I said, it depends on where the digital market goes in the next couple of years for gaming as a whole, and I have no idea, but I'm terrified for it. But luckily, I do still think that we are pretty far away from losing physical copies as a whole and losing stores and companies that focus on those things, which is a good thing. So however many more years it lasts, man, I'm going to hold on to that shit super tight because I need it in my life. I like my game collections. I like my game cases. I need them. I want them. I will happily get off my ass, stand up from my couch, walk to my console, and switch a disc. Same with movies and Blu-rays. That is how I prefer it, and I am totally cool with it. I am not that lazy. So I think that is pretty much it. Those are most of my ideas. Those are, through my notes and stuff I have here, that's pretty much everything I think I have to say. A lot of different ideas. Right now, it's all speculation, it's all theories, and it's all wish lists. A lot of this stuff is also stuff I want. And anyone who's going to make a list like this or think about any of their favorite company's next machine, they're going to think the same thing. So it's not a matter of being right and wrong at this point. It's just a matter of what you think could happen and what you maybe want to happen. These are the things that I think could happen and also want to happen, for the most part. So those are my ideas. Thank you guys again, Michael Kelly and the Magnum 924 or 294. I super appreciate 924, the Magnum 924. Thank you guys for your questions. I always love questions. I'm very, very happy and proud that because of my Nintendo fanship, that my first 4 episodes of Question Corner have been really popular and successful. So thank you guys just for watching and for caring and enjoying it and engaging with me. And also the fact that it's been all Nintendo related. That's great. Again, as I said at the beginning, please leave any questions you have for me that you want answered on another Question Corner down below. Even if I get a bunch of questions, I'll answer only one in the next episode, but I may come back to your question for an episode down the road. You never know. I go back and scour previous episodes and previous comment sections of my videos for questions to answer for these. So you never know what's going to happen. Please leave a question below. Also, like I said, I appreciate that I've only had Nintendo topics to talk about, and I will never shun them. And if you want to ask a Nintendo question, please be my guest. Go ahead. It might be what I pick. But I would like to also encourage people to ask me a question maybe not about Nintendo, because I love talking about everybody. I love talking about gaming as a whole, or even movies as a whole. I don't need it to be Nintendo related. I love Sony and Microsoft. I love my PC and Steam. Like, all that stuff is great. So don't be afraid to ask me a question about, one of the other systems, or about just a broader gaming topic that doesn't specifically relate to Nintendo. There's no wrong question to ask, but I would like to encourage you guys to ask me something maybe not Nintendo related. I would like to do a Question Corner that isn't always focused on Nintendo. As much as I love talking about them, and I'm never sick of talking about them, but I want a little more variety. So, just think about it. Whatever interests you is what I want you to ask me. So that's it. Thanks for listening to my theories and thoughts about whatever Nintendo's going to do with their next machine. Of course, leave your thoughts on my theories below, as well as your own theories, because there's plenty to talk about on this subject. Holy cow, this could just go on forever. So thanks for tuning in. I always appreciate your guys' question and your interest. And yeah, subscribe to Rule of 2 Review if you haven't already. And like and share the video. And I'll catch you guys next time on another video for Rule of 2 Review.